stand on guard. Hey, can Tucker Carlson save Canada? Let's find out. We'll be right back with some more.
So we are in a very precarious position in this country. We need political change, but we also need the resolve to resist.
Yes, please ring that bell. Please like the station. It does help us get over that YouTube algorithm. You know, we were doing really well with the last broadcast, and suddenly YouTube just clamps down on what you're doing. And you think, what's going on? Because when you're talking plain truth, when you're talking about issues the mainstream media doesn't want to deal with, it's difficult sometimes to get the word out. So if you haven't subscribed, please do so. Like us right now so we can get over that YouTube algorithm. And if you've already subscribed, you might find out YouTube has unsubscribed you. In event of that happening, please resubscribe. And Sasha the cat thanks you in advance. So where are we in Canada right now? Well, we're on the eve, actually, of a visit from Tucker Carlson, whom I'm sure all of my viewers know as the most popular political pundit probably in the world. He had the most popular show on Fox News until he started talking about issues that even Fox News didn't want him to talk about, such as Ukraine, such as voter integrity, electrical integrity. These issues were anathema to the mainstream media. He couldn't talk about not supporting the war in Ukraine. That was just too much for the military industrial complex. And you couldn't talk too much about Big Pharma because Big Pharma is paying for the news. So Tucker got turfed from Fox News. And I used to send Tucker news clips, news information, tips when I was working for the Daily Caller because Tucker was no longer directly involved with the work, but he always liked to get information from the correspondence from the Daily Caller because he had founded the Daily Caller years before with his friend Neil Patel. Neil was still looking after the daily activities of the Daily Caller at that time, still is today. But I used to email Tucker with news tips, and he would sometimes use them on his show. So yes, I have some familiarity with Tucker Carlson, and he really though has gone through a political transformation in the last 3 years. It's like we all did to some degree during the COVID pandemic, and especially if you were involved in the Freedom Convoy. There was a political transformation going on with so many of us when we decided to define our politics in a broader sense in terms of what is really important, because we were losing those very important aspects of our political culture, such as freedom of speech and freedom of assembly, the basics. So Tucker is coming to Calgary and Edmonton tomorrow. He's going to be talking to the Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith, whom I've known for many years. She was a journalist, the Calgary Herald, and radio stations. And I've known Danielle Smith for years. I think she's doing a pretty good job. I don't always agree with everything Danielle says or does, but she's so much better than her predecessor. And I think she's, as politicians go in this country, she's damn good. I'm in no politician's pocket. I always say that, which is why I'm not on here every day as a spokesman for any political party, telling you to vote for this political party or that political party or support this person 100%, because politicians will always let you down. I worked in politics for years after I left the Canadian Air Force. which we now call the Royal Canadian Air Force again. And when I was there, it was just the Canadian Air Force lower no, small caps or no caps. And thankfully, it's back to the RCAF. But I worked at the House of Commons on Parliament Hill for years, and I can tell you, politicians will always let you down. I don't care how much you believe in them, how much faith you have in politicians. They will always inevitably let you down on the key issues that matter to you. That's why we have to encourage them to do the right thing. And I think Tucker Carlson coming to Canada is great, but he played this prank on Justin Trudeau. And I gotta show this to you. If you haven't seen it, you'll love it. If you have seen it, you'll love to see it again. Let's have a look here.
Thank you for your call. You have reached the media line. For all urgent requests, please send your request by email. Merci pour votre appel. Vous avez atteint la ligne médiatique. Merci beaucoup.
Yes, hi. I couldn't understand the French part, but it's Tucker Carlson calling from the United States. And I'd be grateful if you pass a message on to the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. We are coming to liberate Canada. We are coming to liberate Canada. And we'll be there soon. Merci.
That is beautiful. That's pure Tucker. There was a time when he wouldn't have done something like that. And of course, this is going to enrage all of those people who signed that petition to ban Tucker Carlson from crossing the border into Canada. Seriously, when he announced he would be coming to Canada on January 24th, first of all, the Calgary, it was so enormously successful, they had to plan a second event in Edmonton later that day, early evening. But when he announced he was doing that, the response from the extremists, from the woke people out there, the woke crowd, was horror. Tucker Carlson can't come to Canada. We don't believe in free speech. So they started a petition. And of course, it's got virtually nobody signing it. I mean, it's hardly even worth mentioning, but it's only worth mentioning because that's how the left in Canada reacts to people they don't want to listen to, or they don't want to debate, or they don't think have a right to even contribute to the national discourse, to even participate in the public square, to talk about issues and policies. Silence them, censor them, ban them from coming into the country. That's how the woke left reacts. So this is classic Tucker Carlson. And ironically, while Tucker Carlson is leaving a message at the Prime Minister's office, where's Justin Trudeau? They're at a secret retreat. Trudeau and the cabinet are at a secret retreat in Montreal to talk about, you guessed it, Donald Trump. And I originally thought, no, it can't just be about Donald Trump. And it's not 100%, but they can't be sitting and predominantly be discussing how evil Donald Trump is and how much they fear the re-election of Donald Trump. They can't be doing that. But that's precisely what they are. We've seen that confirmed by numerous media reports. They're sitting around the table, navel gazing about how Donald Trump is going to be dangerous for Canada, dangerous for democracy, dangerous for the world. But what's it really about? It's about Justin Trudeau finding another distraction. It's about Justin Trudeau pointing his finger at Donald Trump. So you don't point your finger at Justin Trudeau and say, hey, you've taken our freedoms away. All you do is encourage euthanasia programs that are killing people. You've made Canada the suicide capital of the world, not to mention the abortion capital in terms of per capita. You've also made Canada a laughingstock in terms of your incredible antics on the world stage, accusing India. Every time you go to India, you make an ass of yourself. You're creating a censorship zone on the internet that is unparalleled. You've got more of it coming. You're silencing us. You want to eliminate new media. You want to eliminate independent media. You want people to watch your bloody YouTube station, which is useless and that runs political commercials that are virtually unwatchable. But you want all the rest of us to disappear, don't you, Justin? Well, do your best. Bring it on, Justin, because we are fighting back and Canadians are fighting back. And Tucker Carlson's coming to Canada to talk about these very issues. So thank God for that. Yeah, there are alternatives. And like I said, I'm in no politician's pocket, but I am increasingly impressed with some of the things Pierre Poilievre is saying. I'm not impressed when he backs Ukraine and thinks we should be giving billions to that stupid, pointless war because it's bankrupting our own Canadian armed forces and it's bringing the world closer to nuclear war. But that said, I really like what Pierre Poilievre is saying about the World Economic Forum, about axing the carbon tax, about Trudeau's extremist environmental measures. Man, he's right on. When he's talking about these issues, he's right on. I want you to see this exchange here between a reporter from Rebel News who asks him some very good questions, and I like Pierre Poilievre's answers to these questions.
Several times you have denounced the World Economic Forum, and you've made it clear to pledge that if your party forms government, you will ban your cabinet ministers from being involved with the World Economic Forum. Yet, I'm also aware of many Canadians who applaud you for saying that, but also have reservations on whether or not the claim is authentic because they see images of your name being on the World Economic Forum site, and also because you worked closely with former MP John Baird, who at one point was a World Economic Forum young global leader in a campaign. So my question for clarification purposes.
Just a note here. John Baird was a phony conservative. He always was, socially and economically and otherwise. He supported Hillary Clinton in 2016. So John Baird is a joke. I got to say that. Always had, and I can't stand anybody pretending this guy is a conservative, small c or large c.
Those concerned about foreign globalist organizations potentially encroaching on our nation's sovereignty, does your pledge to ban cabinet ministers from being associated with or involved with the WEF expand to those you hire as staff as well as advisors?
Yes. No staff, no ministers, no MPs in my caucus will be involved whatsoever in that organization. It is a group of high-flying, high-tax, high-carbon hypocrites who all got on their private jets to fly off to a remote ski village where they talked about how working class people should not be allowed to heat their homes or drive their pickup trucks. I'm not going to work for a group of globalist billionaires who serve their own interests at the expense of everyone else. And I'd like to specifically point out Mark Carney. Here he was celebrating the central banks who caused the inflation by printing trillions of dollars so that people like multimillionaires like him could have their asset values inflated while the purchasing power of working class people and seniors was wasted away by inflation. A massive wealth transfer from the have-nots to the have-yachts.
First time I've heard that from Poilievre or anybody else. Transfer from the have-nots to the have-yachts. Love it. He's on a roll here, and it is nice to hear a politician talk like this.
A common sense conservative government will bring home control of our democracy to this country, and it's not just on that issue. We will ban the IRGC to end the interference of the 700 agents that are operating in this country on behalf of the terrorist regime in Tehran, and that's according to Global News. We will shut down foreign-controlled police stations. We will bring in a foreign influence registry. We will bring home control of our democracy, and we'll make this a country that works for its people, the common people, and the common sense of the common people, united for our common home. Thank you.
Shut down the damn Chinese police stations that are here to not only spy on Canadians, but to intimidate the Chinese diaspora who fled Chinese communism, and they want to terrorize those people inside Canada. Trudeau, of course, and his public safety minister denied they even existed, lied about it, totally lied about it. Now, Poilievre not only acknowledges that these things exist, but he's going to make sure they shut them all down. Good. We need to do that. We need to stop the foreign interference. You know, and that foreign interference includes Trudeau interfering in the U.S. elections and the U.S. primary by suggesting Donald Trump shouldn't win. Now Trudeau is interfering in other people's elections, and he doesn't care if China interferes in ours because Chinese interference is helping him. And that's all that comes down to. So, good for Pierre Poilievre for saying this. Good for him for identifying these issues. Thank God he's stomping on the WEF and saying these people are a bunch of brazen hypocrites, whining and dining, flying around the world, jet setting, having a great time at your expense, and telling you to sacrifice, live in a cave, freeze, don't eat insects, don't own anything. But they can own whatever they want, and they want to own you. They want to own everything you have. So good for you, Pierre. And I've known Pierre Poilievre for many, many years. I knew him before he was a member of Parliament. And I tell you, he's getting better. He's got to stay that way, though. And that's why we need to keep pushing him, encouraging him, and saying, keep it up, Pierre, because that is what Canadians want to hear. So while Trudeau and his minions and his cabinet ministers are meeting in Montreal in their secret little cabinet retreat and talking about Donald Trump as being this existential threat to Canada, this clear and present danger to democracy, are they talking about issues that really matter to Canadians? Are they talking about how last week there were rolling blackouts in Alberta because of the extreme cold and because the electricity grid collapsed? Now, I want you to listen to somebody who actually knows what he's talking about this issue. And that's former Liberal MP Dan McTeague. He's a friend of mine. And I knew Dan when he was a Liberal MP who wasn't afraid to say no to the Prime Minister, to the leader of his party, who wasn't afraid to stand on principle. And he's still standing on principle today. And he's talking about how foolish it is to talk about net zero for the electricity grid when it means chaos for Canadians. Listen to Dan here.
Electricity well enough that there's two factors that are critical. You have base load. Think it's running 24/7. You got that power when you need it. But then you get cold weather and suddenly you need to reach out more and you can't get that. So you need peak power. It can also happen in reverse when it's extremely hot outside. You need more air conditioners or more computers, wherever the case may be. To do that, your windmills and your solar panels don't have the density of energy to respond to that need. And you could actually wind up critically hurting people or creating energy blackouts or brownouts. So I think we have to be very careful and deal with what is realistic rather than trying to say, this is how the world is going to be. I think it's great to have aspirations and then to have, these goals and these dreams. But the problem is if you confine them to a particular time and say it has to be done by this date, as we're seeing from the federal Liberals, you have to have every EV by 2035, and you have to have an emissions cap put in place by 2030 that is 38% below 2019. That's political science, and that has nothing to do with reality.
And I think that's what Danielle Smith is saying right now. She's saying, hey, we're not disagreeing on that. We should have some targets. We're just disagreeing on the timeline.
Well, yeah, that might be her point. I think the point is rather, whether even those things are achievable. And you say at the end of the day, for political reasons, I don't want to, say net zero is a ridiculous thing. But I think increasingly the world is moving away from the idea that, we can somehow control CO2, therefore we can control temperature. And I think for more and more people that are out there, there are competitive factors here. You're not just dealing with one. For the longest time, it was about climate and nothing else. You had a bit of smattering of health and other things, but it's climate, 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 climate. It's all you hear from people. At the end of all this, I think what people are looking for is some balance. And it comes down to that big question of, can we achieve all these things? How do we do that? We have a pretty good idea where we want to go, but we can't be rushed in doing it, especially since the technology is not there to get us there. You get rid of all the fossil fuels tonight, and for the next 10 years, you're going to leave a lot of people starving. You're going to leave a lot of people dead in a cold country like Canada.
Right on, Dan. Now, Dan is now the president of Canadians for Affordable Energy. Listen to him, watch his broadcasts. He's not out there talking about something he doesn't know about. Dan used to always be there and tell you where the cheapest gas was in the greater Toronto area, or anywhere in Canada, actually, because he understood what affected the price of gas. He understands that. He knows what he's talking about. And he knows the green energy program, the extremist green energy program from the Trudeau Liberals is a recipe for catastrophe, that we're not going to have any energy. You can't power a modern economy with windmills and solar power, especially when those items associated with are manufactured in China. That's just insult to injury. But no, we cannot get rid of fossil fuels overnight. There is no alternative in place. And we've got Stephen Guilbeault doing ads for electric vehicles that don't work in it when it's minus 40 or below in Alberta. You can't get the batteries recharged. People were waiting in Ottawa for 2 to 3 hours to get their cars recharged, even though virtually nobody's driving them. You can't get replacement batteries. The batteries burn out in about a year. If you want to recharge your car, it takes it takes as much as it does to run your washing machine for a week. So you've got to make a decision. Do I go to work? Do I charge my car, or do I do the laundry this week? You have to make decisions like that when you own an electric vehicle, because they're useless. And we don't have the materials necessary, the components, the raw resources that are required to make more batteries. And we're using child labor to get those materials. The whole thing is a fraud. The whole thing is a fraud. These electric vehicles are not going to work. And Trudeau apparently doesn't care if they're going to freeze in Alberta because the grid can't accommodate the need. They were actually telling people, unplug your appliances, unplug your television set. The electricity grid can't accommodate the demand. That's insanity. And Canada produces less than 5%. I say this all the time. I'll say it again. Canada produces less than 5% of greenhouse gas emissions. Global greenhouse gas emissions. So even if we all lived in caves, it wouldn't have any impact, negligible effect on the global carbon footprint. And now that is absolutely stupid, to expect Canadians to sacrifice their livelihoods, to sacrifice their home heating, their cars, and ultimately their food for an ideological extremist agenda that's coming from Stephen Guilbeault, our environment and climate change minister, and Justin Trudeau, our hapless prime minister, who wants you to think Donald Trump is the problem? No. Justin Trudeau, you are the problem. Stop trying to distract us over Donald Trump. Stop trying to distract us with your existential threat rhetoric and climate change. Stop trying to distract us by saying the war in Ukraine is about the future of freedom, about defending liberty, about making the world safe for democracy. Heard it all before, and we're tired of hearing about it. Anyway, we're going to be talking tomorrow about Tucker Carlson, what he said, what he's going to say, and how this affects Canada. Thanks for watching today. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. I'll be reading your comments and I'll be responding. We love you. God bless you.